Thank you for joining us today as we talk about Division I recruiting topics. My name is Christopher Johnson. I'm an Assistant Director for Academic and Membership Affairs. I serve on the Bylaw 11-13-17 team and the 4-4 transfer team. I've been at the national office for a little over a year now. Joined with me today is Marie Dillon. She also serves as an Assistant Director for Academic and Membership Affairs, also on the 11-13-17 team and Technology team. Maria spent over 12 years at the national office.
Let me start by reviewing what we are going to discuss in this presentation. First up, we will discuss early recruiting and what the history is behind it, also what the impact of early recruiting has on PSAs and the membership. The next section is on diagnosing a family member. In this, we're going to discuss the relationship and what the definition of a family member is. We will discuss both the Bylaw 13 and the Bylaw 16's definition and what questions membership should ask when trying to diagnose whether the individual is a family member or not. The last section is going to actually discuss some of our frequently asked waivers. We're going to go through the waivers and some case studies and explain some of the required documentation for it.
First, we're going to talk about what is early recruiting. In 2018, the NCAA Division I Student Athlete Experience Committee took a look at the recruiting process of prospective student athletes in high school. Specifically, they wanted to better align the recruiting process with prospective student athletes' decision-making process during the recruiting process. The Student Athlete Experience Committee took a look year by year at the recruiting process, beginning with the freshman year and concluding with the enrollment at the institution. They wanted to introduce prospective student athletes to the recruiting process gradually. The tiered approach that they determined allowed more focus on high school academics, prospective student athlete well-being with limited recruiting activity early in the high school years, and they wanted to reduce the influence of third-party recruiting. The Student Athlete Experience Committee looked at a tiered approach that can be broken down into 4 subsections. The biggest changes in the recruiting process were PSA's calls to institutional staff members. In sports other than baseball, men's basketball, women's basketball, and football, it established a limitation on when institutional staff members can speak with a prospective student athlete when the prospective student athlete initiates the call to that institutional staff member. Further, another big impact on this legislation was for unofficial visits. Prior to the early recruiting proposal by Student Athlete Experience Committee, prospective student athletes could take an unofficial visit at any time. The proposal changed in sports other than women's basketball and football and established a first opportunity to visit, which was contrary to what happened prior to the proposal. Further, the last 2 subsections, the telephone call to a PSA from an institutional coaching staff member and official visits to the institution, also incurred some changes. In response to the early recruiting, NCAA staff has received multiple waivers and interpretations related to visits unrelated to recruitment in 13.735. To break it down, a visit unrelated to recruitment cannot contain athletics department involvement. Also, there can be no in-person, on-campus contact between institutional coaching staff members and prospective student athletes engaged in a visit unrelated to recruitment. Complimentary admissions may still be provided in accordance with institutional policy. And this, as an example, would be if the President's Association invited all of the National Merit Scholars to come to campus early based on their National Merit Scholar. In accordance with that, they provided them complimentary tickets to the basketball game that evening. Now we're going to dissect what is a family member. NCAA legislation in Bylaw 13 and 16 has established that a parent, legal guardian, child, spouse, domestic partner, or any individual whose close association with the PSA is a practical equivalent can be determined as a family member. This is important because in Bylaw 16, benefits to a student athlete's family member may be provided in accordance with awards and benefits and medical expenses. Further, in Bylaw 13, a prospective student athlete's family member may have additional access to off-campus contacts and official visit expenses. The application of the family member legislation and determining whether this individual whose close association to the PSA meets the definition of a family member can be broken down into 4 subsections to ask the prospective student athlete. Specifically, what role does this individual play in the PSA's life? Are they a coach? Are they a friend? Are they an uncle? Are they a family friend? What is the familial relationship between the individual and the current PSA or student athlete? Are they directly related to them? Is it a grandmother? Is it a second cousin? The questions that need to determine how this individual is related to the prospective student athlete. Further, does this individual support the PSA financially or the student athlete? In this case, we've seen interpretive requests related to a student athlete or a prospective student athlete living with an individual. What other information would lead you to believe this individual is a family member? There are certain circumstances that may warrant that this individual has provided this prospective student athlete or the student athlete guidance or some sort of mentorship that would lead you to believe. Essentially, what other relevant information is there to provide you the interpretive analysis that this individual is the close association of a family member?
Now we're going to review some of our most frequent Bylaw 13 waivers and what we are looking for in the waiver, as well as what documentation we require. Remember, this does not mean that if you present this information, you will automatically get an approval. It is more to provide you information on what we look for in approving or denying waivers. The first 3 I'm going to review and provide case studies for are expenses for additional family members to attend an official visit, extension of the 48 hours for an official visit, so either before or after the end of the 48 hours, and medical expenses for a PSA who suffered an injury. The first scenario is a request from an applicant institution to provide travel expenses for a stepmother in addition to the 2 permissible individuals to travel to an official visit. Bear in mind, since the stepmother is a family member, it would be permissible to pay for her meals, lodging, and expenses, since the number of people attending is less than 4. However, you cannot pay for travel expenses for over 2 individuals in football and basketball. The fact scenario here is that the PSA's father broke his leg and is unable to walk without assistance. The institution has asserted that they want the stepmother to attend to assist with his medical need. The PSA has a documented financial need, and by that I mean there's a document in there stating that he's either Pell eligible or has a fee waiver request. The other things would count too. Those are the most common though. PSA's parents are divorced and the father is remarried, so the request is for the stepmother to attend. The PSA's stepmother would like to attend the official visit to assist the father, and the PSA's mother is attending the official visit as well, so there'll be 3 on the official visit. And like I said, the request from the institution is to actually pay the transportation costs for the PSA's mother, father, and stepmother, so there would be 3 individuals they want to pay for. Some of the considerations when deciding this waiver and determining the outcome is, did the institution provide medical documentation? Does the doctor say that it is required that he needs assistance? What is the familial relationship with the individual that's injured or that wants to attend? So it is a family member in this case, so it'd be a stepmother and it would meet that requirement. And as far as documented financial need, again, is there documented financial need? What is it? Do you have the documentation? We also look at all the extenuating circumstances and what the PSA wants as well. So a statement from the PSA stating they're wanting the stepmother to attend is always good in the case as well. Another type of waiver in this space we see frequently is the coach and parent wanting to attend the official visit. In this fact scenario, the PSA's mother is attending the official visit. The PSA's father is not in his life, and the PSA would like his coach and mother to both attend the official visit. In this case, the institution would like to pay the transportation costs, meals, and lodging for the PSA's coach to attend the official visit as the second person. Our legislation would preclude this because he is a coach. Some considerations in determining the outcome on this is, what is the relationship with the coach? Has the PSA lived with the coach? Does the coach provide financial assistance to the PSA? Why does the PSA want the coach to attend? Bear in mind, since the coach is not a family member, there's actually a high bar to approve this waiver. There would have to be extenuating circumstances for us to approve that. The next slide is the extension of the 48 hours legislation. This is the fact scenario here is the PSA is coming from Australia, so he's outside of the US. The PSA's official visit is scheduled to end at 1 p.m. on Sunday. However, the PSA's flight does not leave until 11 p.m. Sunday night. The PSA would like to return to their hotel and wait for their flight. The 11 p.m. flight is the only flight available for the PSA to return to Australia. And the institution is requests to cease contact with the PSA. However, they would like to provide a meal and transportation to the airport as well as their return flight. Some of the considerations in determining the outcome of this waiver is that the institution would need to provide documentation of the limited flight availability. So what are the flights available? What are the times? Could the PSA take a different flight? Is there a financial impact if the PSA chooses a different flight? What is the timing of the flights on the official visit? Can the institution change the timing of the official visit? And what is in the best interest of the PSA? So the institution would need to provide that information inside of the waiver. Another case scenario that we see frequently is medical expenses for a PSA's injury. In the first scenario I'm going to talk about, the PSA actually verbally committed to the institution in August. So he verbally committed. He actually suffered a major knee injury requiring surgery in October. In November, he signed the NLI with the institution. The institution is requesting to pay for surgery and rehabilitation for the PSA at their institution. Some of the considerations in determining the outcome on this type of a waiver are what is the medical documentation for the injury? That medical documentation in this scenario is required. Does the actual scenario meet the previously approved waiver? There is a previously approved waiver on the system that will allow you to prove this if the injury happened after the PSA committed to the institution by signing an NLI. In this scenario, he did not, since the injury happened prior to him signing the NLI. The next thing we look at is there any documented financial need? So does the PSA have no way of paying for the surgery? Does the PSA reside in the locale of the institution? So if he had the surgery, he would be at that same hospital with the same doctor. And the last question that the institution would have to look at is whether or not there's a recruiting advantage provided to the institution by allowing them to give the medical assistance. Lastly, I wanted to spend a minute and just go through a couple additional frequent waivers that we get in the Bylaw 13 space. One of them that we get a lot is regarding a staff donating to a PSA's GoFundMe account due to a death or illness. Some of the things the institution would need to think about are what is the amount of the donation? Are you looking at $10,000 or $100? Has the PSA committed to the institution? What is his or her relationship to the person? Is this a family member? Is this a friend? How close of a friend? Is there documented financial need? So the GoFundMe account could be for the PSA's family, and it's because their parent died and they need money to pay for food. The last one that we get frequently are visits unrelated to recruitment. So in this scenario, some of the things that we look at is what is the athletics department involvement? Did they request this visit? Are they involved while they're there? What contact will the coaching staff have with the PSAs? So while the PSAs are on campus, will the coaching staff be with them? And what is extenuating? Is there any reasons why the event has to happen?
Thank you, Marie, for going through those frequently asked waivers and questions. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us today as we walk through the early recruiting. We walk through what is a family member and frequently asked waivers. If you have any questions, comments, or any concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us on ncaa.org or the NCAA Regional Rules app. Thank you.